What if I told you that these are the worst junkies in R&B's history? From Samuel Mooore, who got deeply involved in drugs, staying trapped in heroin and cocaine addiction for nearly 15 years, to Kim, whose addiction led him to multiple arrests, hospital visits, and living on the streets of Detroit. Here are the 15 worst junkies in R&B history. Samuel Mooore. Samuel Mooore was a legendary soul and R&B singer, best known as one half of the duo Sam and Dave. From 1961 to 1981, his powerful voice and electrifying stage presence made him a major figure in music. Over his lifetime, he was honored with inductions into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Grammy Hall of Fame, the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, and the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. Even after his time with Sam and Dave, he kept performing, sharing the stage with Elton John, Bruce Springsteen, Phil Collins, Mariah Carey, and many other famous artists. But behind the bright lights of success, Sam Moore's journey was filled with struggles. His life was full of twists and turns. He survived being shot by a jealous husband, spent time in jail, and battled a long addiction to heroin. For artists like him, the road to fame had no clear map, and for many years he found himself lost in it. Looking back to 1986, he admitted that his addiction had cast a dark shadow over his most successful years in the 1960s and 1970s. His partnership with Dave Prater began to fall apart in 1970. Mooore later recalled that after their split, he got deeply involved in drugs, staying trapped in heroin and cocaine addiction for nearly 15 years. Though the duo briefly reunited in 1971, they struggled to regain their former stardom. Moore's addiction only made things worse, and their 1975 album, Back at Chai, produced by Steve Cropper of Booker T and the MGs, failed commercially. Two later albums in 1981 also flopped. Finally, in 1982, Mooore took his first steps toward recovery. While on a European tour, he met Joyce McRae, the woman who would become his wife and manager. She helped him turn his life around, guiding him away from addiction and back into the music world. Thanks to her, he found stability and was able to continue his legacy as one of soul music's greatest voices. Etta James. Etta James was an American singer known for her deep, soulful voice that could shake the rafters. She sang in various genres including gospel, blues, jazz, R&B, rock and roll, and soul, and gained fame with hits such as The Wallflower, At Last, Something's Got a Hold on Me, Tell Mama, and I'd Rather Go Blind. James battled both heroin addiction and alcoholism for much of her life. Her substance abuse led her down a dangerous path, writing bad checks, forging prescriptions, and even stealing from her friends to support her habit. In 1966, she was arrested for fraud and put on probation, and by 1969, she had violated that probation and spent 10 days in jail. Her life became a cycle of rehab stays and relapses. In 1973, Etta James found herself in serious trouble when she was arrested for heroin possession. Instead of sending her to prison, the court ordered her to enter a drug treatment program. However, even in rehab, her struggles weren't over. She became addicted to methadone and began mixing it with heroin. She spent 17 months at the Tarzana Psychiatric Hospital. It was a difficult time, but in her 1995 autobiography, Rage to Survive, she admitted that those months changed her life. Unfortunately, staying clean was not easy. After leaving treatment, she fell back into addiction, especially after getting involved with a man who also used drugs. Even later in life, her battle with substance abuse wasn't over. In 2010, James sought treatment once again, this time for an addiction to painkillers. Despite her struggles, she remained one of the most powerful voices in music, leaving behind a legacy that still inspires today. Amy Winehouse. Amy Winehouse was an English singer, songwriter, and musician known for her deep, expressive contralto vocals and her ability to blend multiple genres, including soul, jazz, reggae, and R&B. Despite her immense talent and success, Winehouse struggled with substance abuse, addiction, and mental health issues throughout her life. Amy Winehouse was no stranger to the struggles of addiction. At the height of her career, she found herself battling a dangerous relationship with drugs and alcohol. In August 2007, Winehouse was hospitalized for what was reported as an overdose involving heroin, ecstasy, cocaine, ketamine, and alcohol. She canceled several performances in the UK and Europe, citing exhaustion and health concerns. In interviews, she admitted to battling self-harm, depression, and eating disorders. After the hospitalization scare, she admitted to the Los Angeles Times, "I really thought it was over for me then." Her drug use also had serious consequences for her career. In 2008, she was blocked from traveling to the U.S. for the Grammy Awards after failing a drug test. Despite the chaos surrounding her, those who knew her personally saw another side of Amy. Fellow singer Lily Allen once said, "Yes, she gets out of her mind on drugs sometimes, but she is also a clever, intelligent, witty, funny person who can hold it together. You just don't see that side." In 2008, Amy decided to quit illegal drugs for good. She told an interviewer in 2010, "I literally woke up one day and was like, I don't want to do this anymore." But while she managed to break free from drugs, alcohol became a new struggle. She would stay sober for weeks, only to relapse again. In 2009, a leaked video allegedly showed her smoking crack cocaine, leading to an arrest. However, she was released after the police couldn't confirm what she had been using. The Crown Prosecution Service considered pressing charges, but eventually dropped the case due to a lack of evidence. When Winehouse passed away in 2011, rumors swirled about the cause of death. Some speculated it was a drug overdose, while others believed it was a mix of substances that proved fatal. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was often referred to as the King of Pop. Jackson popularized innovative dance moves such as the moonwalk, the robot, and the anti-gravity lean, while his music and videos helped shift MTV's focus from rock to pop and R&B. Despite his success, Jackson had a long and complicated history of drug use, particularly with prescription medications. By the 1990s, Michael Jackson was struggling with a growing dependency on prescription drugs, particularly painkillers and strong sedatives. He publicly admitted his addiction in 1993, explaining that painkillers had been prescribed to him after scalp surgery. But he also hinted at a deeper reason, saying the intense pressure of performing and dealing with false allegations had left him physically and emotionally drained. As the years went on, Jackson's dependence on medication only worsened. By 2009, in the months leading up to his highly anticipated This Is It tour, he was desperate for a way to sleep. His struggles with pain and sleep disorders led him to rely on a variety of drugs, including propofol, benzodiazepines, and opioids. His nurse, Sherilyn Lee, recalled that he had asked her for sleep aids. When she refused, he insisted that the only thing that worked for him was a powerful anesthetic called propofol. She warned him, "Michael, if you take this, you're not going to wake up." But Jackson brushed off her concerns, saying he had used it before and was assured it was safe. On June 25, 2009, Jackson's longtime personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, was overseeing his treatment. According to police reports, Dr. Murray had been giving Jackson propofol regularly to help with his insomnia, but had recently tried to wean him off due to concerns about addiction. That morning, however, after several other drugs failed to work, he gave in and administered a small dose of propofol. Murray was later convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Jackson's substance use extended beyond propofol. He also took alprazolam, sertraline, omeprazole, hydrocodone, paroxetine, carisoprodol, and hydromorphone. His access to drugs was facilitated by several doctors who continued to prescribe them, and he reportedly used 19 fake IDs to obtain medication. Bobby DeBarge Jr. Bobby DeBarge Jr. was an American musician with a voice that could soar. As the lead singer of the R&B group Switch, he was known for his incredible falsetto, a high, soulful sound that made fans fall in love with his music. Later, he became a mentor and producer for his younger siblings' band, DeBarge, even stepping in as a member when Elle and Bunny DeBarge left the group. But while his music was full of passion and beauty, his personal life was much harder. Bobby struggled with heroin addiction from a young age, a battle that followed him throughout his life. No matter how many times he tried to get clean, the pull of opioids always seemed to bring him back. His addiction eventually led him into deeper trouble, drug trafficking. In 1988, Bobby and his brother Chico DeBarge were caught smuggling over 2 pounds of cocaine from Los Angeles to Michigan. Their plan fell apart when airport security found the drugs during a routine passenger inspection at Detroit Metropolitan Airport. Bobby was sentenced to 5 years in a Wisconsin prison. While locked away, Bobby had time to reflect on his life. He told himself he would turn things around once he got out. After his release in 1993, he tried to rebuild his career. With the help of Bernd Lichters and Ed Wright, he started recording music again, including songs he had written while in prison. In August 1995, he released his album It's Not Over, a title that showed his determination to keep going. But behind the scenes, Bobby was fighting another battle. While in prison, he told his family that he had contracted HIV. By 1995, his health had deteriorated. He spent his final months lying low in California before moving back to Michigan to be closer to his loved ones. When his condition became critical, his family sent him to a hospice in Grand Rapids. On August 16, 1995, at just 39 years old, Bobby DeBarge passed away from AIDS complications. Kim. Before Kim became a renowned R&B artist, his life was filled with struggles, addiction, and homelessness. But through determination and faith, he turned everything around. Before signing with Motown Records, Kim had to fund his music career on his own. He used his American Express card, performed in a wedding band, and worked as a waiter just to pay for his first album, Chemistry. His hard work paid off when Motown signed him in 2001 and re-released the album in 2003. The record became a huge success, selling over 500,000 copies and earning a gold certification from the RIAA. If you are enjoying this video, appreciate it by giving it a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. D'Angelo. D'Angelo is an American singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and record producer. He could write, produce, and play multiple instruments, making him one of the most influential artists of his time. His journey to fame began when he helped produce the song You Will Know for the R&B group Black Men United, but it was his first album, Brown Sugar, that truly changed everything. The album was a massive success, selling over 1 million copies and earning a platinum certification. Music critics praised it for redefining R&B, helping to start a movement known as neo-soul. But fame wasn't easy for him. As he toured the world, his personal struggles grew worse. He became uncomfortable with the way the industry focused more on his looks than his music. After finishing the tour, he returned home to Richmond, Virginia, and disappeared from the spotlight. Then, in 2001, tragedy struck. His close friend, MTV affiliate Fred Jordan, died. This loss sent D'Angelo into a downward spiral. He started drinking heavily, and his problems only got worse. His record label had been waiting for a new album, but his addiction made it impossible to complete. In 2005, his girlfriend left him, his family distanced themselves, and he even parted ways with his managers. That same year, D'Angelo was arrested for drug possession. His mugshots shocked the world. The once fit, confident star now looked overweight and broken. A car accident soon followed, leading to rumors that he had been critically injured. With his life spiraling out of control, he checked into rehab at the Crossroads Center in Antigua. Donny Hathaway. Donny Hathaway was a gifted soul singer, a talented keyboardist, and a songwriter whose music touched the hearts of many. Rolling Stone once called him a soul legend, and his songs, like The Ghetto, This Christmas, Someday We'll All Be Free, and Little Ghetto Boy are still loved today. But behind his incredible talent, Hathaway struggled with deep personal battles that would eventually take a heavy toll on his life. At the height of his career, he began experiencing serious mental health issues. His behavior became unpredictable, and in 1971, doctors diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia. To manage his condition, he was prescribed multiple medications at one point, as many as 14 different pills, which he had to take twice a day. But his struggles didn't end there. Hathaway also battled drug addiction, which made his mental health even worse. The pressure of the music industry, combined with his fragile emotional state, created a storm that he found increasingly difficult to escape. At times, medication seemed to help. His mental state would improve, and he could focus on his music again. But according to his wife, Yolanda Hathaway, whenever he started feeling better, he would often stop taking his medication. From 1973 to 1977, his condition became so severe that he was hospitalized multiple times. By 1979, Hathaway was trying to return to music. He was working on a new album of duets and had started a recording session with producers Eric Mercury and James M. Toome. At first, everything seemed fine. His voice was strong, and he was singing beautifully. But then his behavior took a disturbing turn. He became paranoid, convinced that white people were trying to kill him. He even believed that someone had connected his brain to a machine to steal his music and his voice. His behavior worried everyone in the studio. Mercury felt that they couldn't continue recording, so he called off the session, and the musicians went home. Just a few hours later, tragedy struck. Donny Hathaway was found dead outside New York City's Essex House Hotel, lying on the pavement beneath the window of his 15th-floor room. The police reported that he had jumped. A.I. Green. Al Green is a legendary soul singer, songwriter, and record producer known for his smooth voice and heartfelt music. In the early 1970s, he released a string of hit songs, including Tired of Being Alone, I'm Still in Love with You, Love and Happiness, and Take Me to the River. Despite his success, Green's life was filled with both triumph and struggle. As a teenager, he had a difficult relationship with his father, who was deeply religious. When his father caught him listening to Jackie Wilson, he was kicked out of the house. With nowhere else to go, Green moved in with a woman who worked as a prostitute. During this time, he got caught up in a rough lifestyle, hustling to survive and using drugs. As a result of using drugs, he got into a lot of trouble. In 1974, his former secretary, Linda Wills, accused him of physically assaulting her, claiming he pushed her through a glass door during an argument about unpaid wages. The case was eventually settled out of court. A few years later, in 1977, Green and his former organ player, Larry Robinson, got into a violent altercation in Texas. Robinson said Green and his bodyguards attacked him over unpaid money. Both men were arrested, but they only faced misdemeanor charges. In 1978, Green was once again accused of violence. This time, a woman said he had beaten her unconscious with a tree branch. However, the case was dropped when she failed to appear in court. Green's life took a dramatic turn after tragedy struck. His girlfriend died after shooting herself, and the event deeply shook him. He became an ordained pastor and turned to gospel music. In 1976, he founded the Full Gospel Tabernacle Church in Memphis. Though he devoted himself to gospel for many years, Green eventually returned to secular music. In 1988, he teamed up with Annie Lennox to record Put a Little Love in Your Heart for the movie Scrooged. The song became his first top 10 pop hit in over a decade. He followed it with The Message is Love in 1989, and even recorded the theme song for the short-lived TV show Good Sports in 1991. Charlie Wilson. Charles Wilson, also known as Uncle Charlie, is one of the most celebrated voices in R&B. As the lead singer of the Gap Band, he helped create some of the biggest funk and soul hits from the late 1960s until the group disbanded in 2010. As a solo artist, Wilson has been nominated for 13 Grammy Awards and 11 NAACP Image Awards, winning 2. He's been honored with a Soul Train Icon Award and a BMI Icon Award, and was even named Billboard's #1. One adult R&B artist in both 2009 and 2020. His hit song, There Goes My Baby, was the top urban adult song of 2009. However, before then, Wilson faced life on the streets. In 1986, the Gap Band cut ties with their manager and lost their publishing deal. Though they were still under contract, they struggled to find new management. With a little money coming in and no clear path forward, Wilson turned to drugs and alcohol as a way to cope. What started as an escape quickly turned into a nightmare. He lost control, spiraling into heavy addiction. He said, "I was doing it all, cocaine, crack, all of it, getting high all the time. I lost so much weight that I was down to about 130 pounds. Can you imagine? A grown man that size? I was 130 pounds in the 7th grade. For nearly 2 years, Wilson lived on the streets of Los Angeles. He moved around at night to avoid being seen and hid during the day. He ate whatever he could find and sometimes showered using random sprinklers around town. He was ashamed and didn't want to ask for help. But even when he did reach out, the people he turned to refused to help him. Wilson's life might have stayed on this path, if not for one person, Ma Hin, a drug counselor who would later become his wife. With her support, he got sober and slowly rebuilt his career. Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson was one of the greatest performers of his time, a true pioneer who helped rhythm and blues evolve into soul music. Known as Mr. Excitement, he was famous for his incredible stage presence, electrifying dance moves, and powerful voice. He started his career as a member of the R&B group Billy Ward and his Dominoes before going solo in 1957. Over the years, he recorded more than 50 hit songs, with 16 reaching the top 10 on the R&B charts and several climbing to number 1. On the pop charts, he had 14 songs make the top 20, proving his talent could cross genres, from rock and roll to soul to doo-wop. But while Wilson's career soared, his personal life was full of struggles. Behind the scenes, he was controlled by the mafia, chased by the IRS, and caught up in a life of reckless behavior. He had 3 marriages and countless affairs and battled addiction to alcohol, amphetamines, and cocaine. Though many who knew him said his drinking was his biggest problem, his drug use became more severe in his later years. In 1970, Wilson suffered a heartbreaking loss when his 16-year-old son, Jackie Jr., was shot and killed near their home in Detroit. The tragedy sent Wilson into a deep depression. He withdrew from the world, barely performing, and turned to alcohol and drugs to cope with his pain. More sorrow followed. In 1977, his daughter Sandra died of an apparent heart attack at just 24 years old. Then, in 1988, his other daughter, Jacqueline, was killed in a drug-related incident in Highland Park, Michigan. During this dark period, Wilson's career faded, and his once unstoppable energy began to wane. Gerald Levert. Gerald Levert was born into soul music. As the son of Eddie Levert, the legendary lead singer of the O'Jays, music ran in his blood. But Gerald didn't just live in his father's shadow. He made a name for himself as a powerhouse singer, songwriter, and producer. He first found fame as part of the R&B group Levert, alongside his brother Sean and their friend Mark Gordon. Later, he joined forces with Keith Sweat and Johnny Gill to form LSG, a supergroup that brought together 3 of the smoothest voices in R&B. Throughout his career, Gerald released 9 solo albums, 6 albums with Levert, 2 with his father, and 2 with LSG. His impact went beyond just his own music. He also helped discover and mentor groups like the Rude Boys, Men at Large, and One of the Girls. But as the pressure of the music industry grew, Gerald turned to drugs to help him cope. What may have started as a way to deal with stress soon became a dangerous habit, one that would ultimately take a heavy toll on him. On November 10, 2006, Gerald Levert was found unresponsive in his bed at his home in Cleveland, Ohio. He was just 40 years old. At first, it was believed he had died from a heart attack, but when the autopsy results came back, they revealed that the real cause was an accidental overdose. A mix of prescription painkillers, anxiety medication, and over-the-counter drugs had built up in his system. Among them were Vicodin, Percocet, Darvocet, and Xanax, along with 2 antihistamines. His family tried to shift the focus away from drug use, explaining that all the medications had been prescribed to help him deal with chronic pain from past injuries and surgeries. Regardless of the circumstances, Gerald Levert's passing was a heartbreaking loss for the music world. Natalie Cole. Natalie Cole was an American singer, songwriter, and actress. She was the daughter of singer and jazz pianist Nat King Cole. Her breakthrough came in the mid-1970s with her debut album Inseparable, featuring the hit song This Will Be an Everlasting Love. The album's success made history, earning Natalie the Grammy Award for Best New Artist. She became the first African-American and the first R&B artist to ever win the award. But after a string of hit albums, things started to fall apart. By the early 1980s, her career was struggling, and behind the scenes, Natalie was battling a serious drug addiction. She later revealed in her autobiography, Angel on My Shoulder, that her drug use had taken over her life. She became addicted to heroin and crack cocaine, making dangerous choices just to support her habit. At her lowest point, she even worked as a lookout for prostitutes. Her addiction nearly cost her everything. There was a terrifying moment when she refused to leave a burning building, and another when her young son, Robert, almost drowned in the family pool while she was high. Realizing she was on a path to destruction, Natalie checked herself into rehab in 1983, spending 6 months in treatment. After getting clean, she slowly rebuilt her career. She released the album Dangerous, which helped her make a comeback. But it was her 1987 album Everlasting that truly brought her back to the top. With hits like Jumpstart, My Heart, I Live for Your Love, and her dance pop cover of Bruce Springsteen's Pink Cadillac, Natalie proved she was still a star. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was an American singer, actress, film producer, and philanthropist. She is one of the most awarded performers of all time. But behind the fame and success, she faced a long and painful struggle with addiction. In a 2009 interview with Oprah Winfrey, Whitney opened up about her battles with drugs and alcohol. She admitted that her drug use had started off lightly, but became a serious problem after the massive success of The Bodyguard and the birth of her daughter. In July 1999, Whitney Houston's family, including her mother, Cissy Houston, staged an intervention, begging her to seek treatment for her drug use. But Whitney refused. By 2001, her dangerously thin appearance sparked rumors about her health. At the time, her publicist blamed stress, saying she simply wasn't eating. Years later, in 2009, Whitney admitted the truth. Drugs were the real reason for her weight loss. In a now famous 2002 interview with Diane Sawyer, she addressed the drug rumors head-on, famously saying, "Crack is whack." She admitted to using drugs but downplayed the extent of her addiction. However, by 2009, she was more open about her struggles. In a deeply personal interview with Oprah Winfrey, she revealed that her drug use became heavier after the massive success of The Bodyguard and the birth of her daughter. She said, "By 1996, it was an everyday thing." She spoke of rehab stays and attempts to get clean, but admitted that her addiction continued even after treatment. In 2005, Cissy took legal action and got law enforcement involved to force her daughter into rehab. Despite multiple attempts to get clean, Whitney struggled for years. In May 2011, she checked into rehab again, calling it part of her long-standing recovery process. But even then, her battle was far from over. On February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston was found unresponsive in her hotel suite. The coroner's report later confirmed that a mix of prescription drugs and alcohol was found in her system. The toxicology report showed a mixture of alcohol, cocaine, and Xanax in her system. There was also the presence of xylene, which is a substance that forms when cocaine and alcohol come in contact. Dave Prater. David Prater Jr. was a Southern soul and R&B singer, best known as one half of the legendary duo Sam and Dave. With his deep baritone and powerful tenor voice, he helped create some of the most unforgettable songs in soul music history. According to Rolling Stone magazine, Sam and Dave were the most successful and critically acclaimed soul duo of all time, bringing the energy and passion of black gospel music into mainstream pop. Their biggest hits, including Soul Man, Hold On, I'm Coming, and I Thank You, were recorded at Stax Records in Memphis, Tennessee, between 1965 and 1968. These songs became Southern soul classics, filled with call and response vocals that made them feel like electrifying church sermons set to music. But behind the success, things weren't always smooth. The duo had a complicated and often tense relationship, and when their time with Stax Records ended, things fell apart. By June 1970, Sam and Dave officially split up. After the breakup, Prater tried to continue his music career on his own. He returned to Alston Records in Miami, but his solo career never reached the same heights, and he performed only sporadically over the next year. During this time, Prater struggled with drug addiction. Although his wife believed he was overcoming it, trouble found him again. In the summer of 1987, he was arrested for selling crack cocaine to an undercover officer. He later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. The court also ordered him to pay a $2,580 fine and complete 150 hours of community service. Despite his troubles, his wife remained hopeful. She said he was having a problem there, but he seemed to be coming through it. It took hold of him for a while, but before he could fully turn things around, tragedy struck. On April 9, 1988, just a year after his arrest, David Prater died in a car accident. Which of these singers do you think is actually the worst? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content.